started. Welcome to Biz Talks with Jodia Vanel.
Thank you.
So Dominic, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you're doing some really amazing things right now in terms of technology and communication. Can you just give us an overview of what those companies are and how did you get started?
Sure. So good day, Jodia. Thank you for having me on this interview. I'm Dominic Christoper, CEO at Deh Abroad Corporation. Deh Abroad is a technology platform created to offer wealth and cultural awareness for the Caribbean community abroad. Through our platform, through our platforms, users are able to receive exclusive discounts from selected restaurants and professional businesses when booked. In terms of our business and business model, there's not much we can do at this moment because there's no events going on, no one is going out to restaurants to eat. So due to the detrimental impact of COVID-19 to our Caribbean community, we'll be remiss if we did not take the responsibility to create a call to action to address the needs of our clients and their employees as a result of this health crisis. So through Deh Abroad, we created Bickle. Bickle means food in Jamaican dialect patois. So Bickle Food Services, which gives Caribbean restaurants employees an opportunity to sustain themselves during this crisis to deliver food services. Our main goal through Bickle is working with these restaurants to keep their doors open. And in return, these restaurants are willing to offer free and exclusive discounts to essential workers and families affected by this pandemic.
Wow. Okay. So I hear that, there's the Deh Abroad platform and now the Bickle platform. And we're getting into this very early, kind of changing up the segment today, which is perfectly fine, right? But it's really amazing to hear that out of this crisis, you've been able to pivot and start up Bickle, teaming up with restaurants that are actually open and, hopefully, servicing those essential workers out there. Can you just tell me, like, how did you come up with that idea or, what made you start it up?
Well, through my social media, I do have a lot of restaurants that I follow and vice versa. So I've been getting a lot of news that everyone is closing. So the our restaurant clientele through Deh Abroad are mostly dine-in restaurants. So these restaurants are not used to the method of takeout. So because of that, now their employees are unemployed. And what I do understand is that most of these restaurant employees, chances are, might not benefit from federal stimulus package. And because our community the Caribbean community is a wide immigrant community, we were thinking about ways as to how we could sustain the community. Whereas we definitely want to encourage our people to say, for example, in New York City, to get a New York State ID and also an EIN and apply to become an independent contractor. But most of these employees in these industries, for example, the restaurant, does not have that knowledge as yet. So to sustain these families, we said, okay, you know what? These restaurant employees are being laid off. What can we do? What call to action can we create to give them an opportunity? So a takeout restaurant employee will still maintain that post, but a waiter or a bartender will lose that opportunity. So speaking with the restaurants on our platform, they agree to say, allow their keep their employees on the books. Where now, okay, guys, there's no dining. There's a new platform that we could use that you guys could do the delivery during this time until things get back to normal. So it was simply just to address the restaurants who have the dining, which is our clientele, as to how we can sustain their employees.
Yeah, I love how you identified a need out there, something that was missing and greatly affecting, families throughout New York City, New York State, and throughout the country to be able to support the people that are deeply affected by the financial crisis right now, and also the personal crisis that's happening with people losing their families. So that's really, really, really amazing. And I love that, the restaurant owners, were thinking about those families and trying to sustain them. So awesome job on creating that. So how is it going right now?
Well, it's going very well. I I've been on a few other panels, and luckily, the media here and back home in the Caribbean had picked up on the idea of Bickle, and I've gotten a huge exposure in the Jamaican community, and because of that, I have more restaurants that I didn't know exist that actually messaging messaging me through email, through social media, as to how they can be a part of it. I do have members of the diaspora even sending message as to, hey, is there any opportunity that's available for us? So for now, it was, for example, how can I help the community?
Hmm.
So based on the positive feedback, I said, you know what, the community actually needs help, but how do I expand it where now we can have more restaurants on the platform? We can set up a database where now we can create more opportunities, not only for the restaurant employees, but also members of the Caribbean diaspora, for example, say beauty salon, barbershop, uh, car repairs. Those businesses are also closed, and those are actually one of the biggest, feel the biggest industry in our community. So now it's the response has been receptive. We're getting feedback and phone calls from a lot of members of the diaspora wanting to participate on the delivery service.
Yeah, that's really cool because, I was thinking while you were explaining your platform, it's really a very transferable platforms to all different industries, right? And even just thinking about your immediate need was to support the Caribbean community, particularly the Jamaican community. This is a platform that I think it's really international, right?
And it's
International platform.
so I just want to touch on, so for example, so with Deh Abroad, we're working, and we can discuss this later, but so with Deh Abroad, we're working on where you can, it's a lifestyle where you can book events, international events. So I started to work with members in West Africa on Deh Abroad. So when they heard of Bickle, they said, hey, Dom, we need Bickle in Africa, and we need Bickle in the UK. So now it now transitions, because initially it is a diaspora platform, but because I'm Caribbean, I started with the Caribbean community. So
Mhm.
now after speaking with my counterparts in Ghana, they're like, hey Dom, we need African restaurants on Bickle. So I'm like, oh, awesome. So
Yeah.
now, so we continue to transition where it is not only say in the US, but now we're thinking to say, how can we change modify the platform to add more African businesses, more southern businesses, and to expand into the UK, where once we're overseas in Europe, then it now becomes essential diaspora food delivery service.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking from my background and your background, I mean, we all originated out of Africa, right? So why not tap into the motherland and expand from there on? So
Right.
Bickle and Deh Abroad, I feel like they are somewhat like sister companies, right? They really complement each other. So can we talk about some of the amazing things that Deh Abroad has been doing on the not-for-profit side and the for-profit?
So let's start for the people. So we do have a nonprofit umbrella. So for Deh Abroad is that you can use our platform to find different businesses in the community, professionals. So what we have done is that these professionals, we have created a internship and mentoring program. So we are working with students who are on a college level base, So if a student is studying accounting, instead of say working in a job not related, they can come through our internship program where we connect them with someone in finance, someone in a CPA, for example, that they now can now get a mentor. Once they graduate college, they can add that person to their resume as a reference, and also continue to build and have like hands-on experience. And that goes for every different industry. For example, even if a student, for example, graduates medical school, they can come to us as that we have different medical professionals on the platform where we also offer residency program for grad students. So that's one of the things we're working on the internship in the nonprofit. And what we also stretch to do is we've created under nonprofit umbrella, Deh Abroad Village. So most young entrepreneurs, for example, like us, will say, hey, I need to start a business, but they don't know about setting up a corporation. Even if they don't have the funding, they don't know about, for example, simply go on IRS website, getting an EIN number, getting a DBA for their corporation, knowledge about an LLC or corporation. And what we even understand is that most of the businesses online are clothing, for example, and most of these online entrepreneurs in our community are using their own addresses. So what we decided to do, we created a village under the nonprofit where we can host the in services for the interns, and also it's going to be a virtual shop in our community that online entrepreneurs can use it for safety, for security, instead of using their home address for the billing and to be tracked. So those are things that we're working on to say for the internship, the mentoring for the college students. And the beauty about New York City, it is bad, but it's sort of good, is that New York is pretty much segregated. So it makes it better for us where we can go to a York college, and the majority of those student population are from the Caribbean and African diaspora. And if we go to Brooklyn, for example, Medgar Evers, St. Joseph, St. Francis, Brooklyn College, or even in the Bronx is a Monroe College. So we could go to these colleges and easily identify Caribbean students with Caribbean background in order to assist them during their college years. So, so
So I hear what you're saying on that. I'm just interested in learning a little bit more with the impact of COVID and those college students. How did that affect Deh Abroad?
yeah, it affected us tremendously because what we were working on for June is actually to roll out the internship program, because in the US, June is recognized as Caribbean Heritage Month. So for Deh Abroad, we made a connection with a few colleges in New York where we were sort of going to do like a job. What I forgot what it's called, like a job day,
Like a job fair.
job fair.
Mhm.
So we're hoping to have a job fair in order to say assist the community, assist the students. So because our nonprofit side was more of the college students, but because now the schools are closed, that pretty much affected our call to action for the community to Deh Abroad. Another thing, for example, for the for-profit side, that also affected us because mentioned earlier, most of our businesses are restaurants through dining and attorneys, doctors. So these companies are closed. No one is actually going to these businesses because through Deh Abroad, we offered exclusive discounts and incentives. So it's pretty much complicated to offer those type of incentives to the community. So because of that, I said, you know what? What can I do? What can I do? I do have my 9 to 5. I'm still benefiting from my 9 to 5, but what can I do to help our community? I just want to add this piece. So I came here on an F1 visa, and while going to college here, I couldn't work. So I know how it felt not working while you're in college. So if it affected myself as a student immigrant, it must affect those in our community who are waiting for even a DACA recipient, or those of our community who are waiting for adjustment of status. And the thing is, with the COVID, what I understand is that no one will say anything or expose their status during this time because there's no help. And why should you express your status, explain your status? Even with the president, what the immigration policy is enforcing, I know for a fact members of a community will not say anything that, hey, they're not benefited. So I know how it feels like to be on an F1 visa. So I said, what can I do to help our community? So I said, you know what? Everyone needs food. The Department of Education, as I understand, uh, issues breakfast and lunch to the New York community. And after doing the research, I'm not sure, but what I noticed is that there was no dinner being offered. So most families do rely on school lunches to feed the kids. So I said, okay, Department of Education is offering breakfast and lunch. What can we do at Bickle to help our community? We do have restaurants that open late. Why not have these restaurants through the Bickle platform offer hot meals to members of our community? So that's part of the call to action as to how we could say help the community through Bickle. Deh Abroad is there. It's going to be there for the future because we all are abroad. It's a network for wealth, but I had to change course on my platform to create something that how can I help each other during this time?
Yeah, and that's the magnificence of it all. And, you know, when I talk to a lot of the entrepreneurs, it's about how they're pivoting during this time. It's not necessarily, even though it's very important to all of us to be able to make money, but I think at this time it's very important to serve. And so it's really inspiring to hear your story as a student and how that really, you know, was the genesis for what you're doing with Bickle. And of course, Deh Abroad is going to come back because, listen, schools are going to be back open, hopefully, fingers crossed, right, in September. And so I'm sure college students and students abroad will pick right back up and business will continue. But right now, I think part of the reason why you're getting so much media attention with Bickle is because it's doing such great work, not just in this community, but just all across the world.
Correct, correct. Thank you. And I just remember. So I know you had mentioned earlier about what advice we could give to entrepreneurs.
I mean, Dominic, you're still in my show right now, right?
So I would.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. That's the next transition. You know, providing insights to entrepreneurs, small business owners of you know, your own tips, right? Your own you know, your own advice of how they can do things better, more efficiently during this time and in general for their business.
I had to laugh. I became a showstopper. Um, well, so the advice that I give is what I use as well. That I studied myself is your home. You have, say, hours of the day to think. You have a computer. We're all skillful. That's a unique thing about human beings. We can create a lot of projects. So I'm fortunate that I'm a coder and I'm also an innovator and on top of it, an entrepreneur, which is great. But there are there are platforms that exist that someone who has a skill set can go online relatively cheap and even to say purchase a template. There are templates that you can purchase, for example, $15 that were designed outsourced abroad. And I can give an example, say theme forest. Someone can go on a theme forest and purchase a relatively cheap template that that can be added to a CMS. CMS, for example, everyone is familiar with WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, Joomla, and also an HTML, which is easily editable, that they can go on and say, how do I create an online platform? right? This is a skill set that I have. So even say if you're a baker, how do I go and easily create a website that's relatively cheap? How do I get a domain name from, for example, GoDaddy? Like these are things that I also did because even say, for example, with Deh Abroad, that as I mentioned, that I'm doing with the businesses, connecting the business, the restaurants. I've added Deh Abroad events where I see a need where, for example, the interview we're on now is how can we promote and spread awareness for these type of informative panels that's in our community. So what I've added is Deh Abroad events that instead of just having the Zoom link on the flyer, it works similar to Eventbrite, but it is more tailored. Deh Abroad is more tailored to us. So you're doing an event, you can send us a message, and if it's a free webinar, we just post it. We repost it on our platform. We spread awareness as to what's going on, what educational information is out there. So by staying home, I said, hey, this is pretty awesome. Let me create this. So I created Deh Abroad events, which is working great. And I have received numerous calls of a lot of people brainstorming great ideas, right? I'm like, guys, it's their great ideas, but I'm only me. But I still decide to give them the time of the day, or also do an R&D, which is a research and development, as to how they can go about creating their platform, and just use myself as communicate with me as a consultant as to how I can assist you in building. Another thing that I even encourage our people to do is to invest. So I have time in order to expand my portfolio where I'm still trading. The market is going up and down, yes, but numerous times the percentage is going up. So I do encourage our people to say invest, but in order to say on an internet platform, I do encourage our people to go to Theme Forest, for example, purchase a relatively cheap template, purchase a relatively cheap domain name. Platforms, Shopify, Squarespace, these templates are already built. You don't have to be a web developer. You have the skill set. There's so many things that we can do during this time. I was fortunate to to reach this far with Bickle because Bickle is essential. It creates jobs. There are other platforms out there that we all can think of to say help our community. This right now, we don't know when thing is going to get back to how we're used to. So it's a transition in life, transition in time. How do we create stuff in order for us to adjust? Even if it doesn't monetize you now, but what can you create now to say when things get back to normal, then you're going to start to benefit. So I just advise our community just to do the research. There's always YouTube. You go on YouTube, you learn how to use this platform, invest less than $100, and you have a startup. But later on, as you see that the potential of it growing, I can just advise or people say, go to Department of State in New York, create an LLC, get a tax ID number. There are online banks that are available now that you can go and try to get an online account. These are the resources that are available. So if you have the idea, if you think outside of the box, the opportunity is there for all of us to grow.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, for the last couple of weeks, I've become a YouTuber. I'm an expert on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all of these things. I really had to like invent myself during that time and learn about all these different platforms and opportunities. I mean, listen, I'm a skillful video editor at this point, but it also drives me really crazy too. And I think about like outsourcing that type of work because there are people out there that are doing it. So if you do have the finances to do it, I say go ahead. But if you don't, you have everything at your fingertips via the World Wide Web, and you can learn how to do all of those things.
And I forgot because it's about, so this interview is pretty much about sharing knowledge. So with the World Wide Web, there's platform out there relatively cheap. Fiverr, I think it's Fiverr or Fivver. There are Upwork, where you can literally go on. If you like a template, you can go on Fiverr and say find a designer that will charge you, say, $10, $20 to create a template that you're looking for. So these are resources that are available. Don't think that, say, there's a Dominic that created Bickle that can use his fancy source code, so for example, Python, Objective-C, C Sharp. Those things are fancy, yes, because these are things that developers like myself are used to, but the market is still available for more entrepreneurs to build their platform on the internet. So, use a CMS, for example, WordPress, Shopify, and use outsourcing platform, for example, Fiverr, Upwork, to find designers who are willing and ready to let your platform be ready.
Yeah, no. Thank you for all of the business tips that you've shared today. I'm sure many of the small businesses are already doing it, but it's just a reminder for them to continue using all of these business tools that are out there for them. And for all the aspiring entrepreneurs, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to create it from scratch. All you have to do is use resources and make it your own. Steal everyone's ideas while you're at it.
Research.
Research.
Yeah, it is available. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dominic, thanks for joining us today. Let us know, where do you park at? What platforms are you on so that we could connect with you?
Sure. So I'm part on all major social media platform. Uh, it's relatively easy to be found. It's at everything is at Deh Abroad, DEHABROAD. Um, I'm responsive on social media. You can always go find, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We've created Bickle, Bickle, as well on all social media platform. I handle those accounts. Anyone has a mess, any question, I'm always there to answer. And also we have a toll-free number, which is linked to WhatsApp, which is 1-877 Deh Abroad.
All right. Thanks for sharing today. Thanks for joining us at Biz Talks with Jodia Vanel.
Thank you.